catwalks, an important part of any industrial tabletop, and that's coming right up. So I want to do a table based around a water treatment plant for Fallout Wasteland Warfare, and catwalks are going to be a very important central part of this table. So I've just spent about 2 weeks in Blender sculpting it, and it went something like this. I'm going to look at some reference imaging. And from what I've noticed from a lot of this reference imaging, like if you look at this one, for example, it's kind of large, long, narrow holes, if that makes sense. This is probably a better example. Or this one. Once it loads, yeah, it's these large, narrow holes. So we're going to start by making a grid kind of like this to use as the floor of our catwalk, is what I think we're going to do. And to do that, we're going to start with plane. So we'll tab in and we'll open up our transform menu. How far out is that coming? That's 1 millimeter. Okay, so we want the catwalk to be about, well, the SentryBot's base is 60 mil. You're looking at 40 mil base for super mutants, so it needs to be at least 40 mil wide because we want super mutants to be able to walk on this thing. Much debating later. You need 40 mil bases. So I reckon if we design it with 40 mil bases in mind, that should work pretty well. So if we look at 40 mil, I reckon if we have our grid 3 mil, like the holes in our, actually no, we'll make the actual bar bit of our grid 3 mil by 1 mil, 4 mil by 1 mil. We'll see what it looks like, and we can always change it if I don't like it. So now the question is, how long do we want each section of catwalk to be? If it's 46 mil wide, I reckon if we make each section of catwalk 150 mil long, seems like a decent size. 151 mil long. It's pretty close. It will do for our purposes. So there is the basis of this section of catwalk. But looking back at our reference images, a lot of the catwalk has these like, I think they're extrusions. It'd be nice if I could see the other side of that. I mean, here it's just a flat piece of bar, but that's kind of boring. I like the extrusion looking on here. I think it's flat on the interface, so it's more of it's like a C extrusion, where there's just like a C shape cut into the thing where the metal is pushed through, and it just comes out in long bars in that shape. So we've got this bit. We should probably make it nice and thick. So we tab in. Four mil thick. That's not bad. I think that'll work well. Give us a nice thick, because it does need to be able to support the weight. These realistically should be thinner, but we can't really have it much thinner without running into printing issues. So we're going to have that like that, and this is going to be deck. We'll call this deck. And just probably make sure that our faces are oriented correctly. Wouldn't you know, there are some that are not. So we're going to go in, select all. We're going to not press N, we're going to go Alt-N, recalculate outside, and now the faces are all facing the right way. Okay, so the next section we're going to need is that extrusion. So we're not going to worry about that. And we're just going to go and add another plane. And you know what? We're going to make this extrusion the exact way, not the exact way, but close enough to how they would make a real one in a factory. So we're going to go in here with our little plane, tab in, and I reckon we should probably make it a little bit thicker, just because it does need to support some weight. So I reckon a 2 mm thick extrusion will be perfect. There we go. We've now got our little extrusion beam. I love it. Perfect. That's exactly what we want. But there is a small issue, because if we just let it go as is, there'll be some faces in here we don't want, so we're going to delete those faces. Go in, select all, rotate X 90 degrees. So we want it kind of, to be flat along with the other bit. Make sense? Okay, I need to make this taller, I think. The proportion to how thick that is, I don't like it. There we go, and that's more or less what our section of catwalk is going to look like. Well, at least for this bit of it. The next thing, so now we've got this flat bit supporting the mesh. We need these rails, and on a lot of these catwalks, it's either just a piece of box steel going up, very simple white rail, maybe some mesh there. It's mainly box. Some of them use round bits. 1 hour later. No, I think they've got to be round. They've got to be round. It looks weird if it's not round. Let's go round. Let's start by adding in a cylinder. Yeah, let's go with the cylinder. Here's how we're going to make this look right. Got the Soul Survivor here. It should be at about waist height, because if you're walking along, that's about where the rail would be. So bring my ruler in and about there. So about that sort of height. So about the 22 millimeters above the deck. But shears on a base is like 4 mm thick. So that's going to throw things off a bit. So to make it look not weird, we're actually going to add 4 mm to that height. So 26 mm is the height of this rail. Now, we know that this needs to clip onto these faces somehow. I don't want it to pass through the shape of the extrusion. I kind of want it to be somewhere around here. And then I want to have a thick bit that comes in and clamps onto there. And then some bolts that go through to have it held on. That'll look cool. I like that idea a lot. And that's some okay progress, I think, we've made on this catwalk. And the best part is, if we did get that height wrong when we do a test print, coming in and changing is very, very easy. Okay, so the next thing that we need is to bolt this rail in. So to do that, we're going to make some bolts. Shocking, I know. Now, to make the bolts, we're going to start with a circle. And we wanted to have 6 because it's going to be a 6-sided head to it. Because we need a head, a nut, and then like a threaded piece that goes through it. Really, it should taper a bit at the end there, but for this application, with how tiny this thing's going to be, it's going to be fine. So now we can take our little hex bit with a little bit of threaded bar sticking out of it. I'm going to rotate it on Y at 90 degrees. There we go, and those are nicely bolted onto our little, like, C channel. And we now have this nice straight section of catwalk. Now, there's 2 more elements that we need to this. We need the legs that this is going to stand on, and we need some kind of bracing to go in between so that it's not just trying to bend the platform itself. We also need to find somewhere to put our 4x1mm magnets in to join different sections of catwalk together. So they hold together when they're on the tabletop, because that's an important design consideration to make. There we go. I think that looks better as well. It looks less crowded. That many bolts are still probably overkill for that guardrail, but I think that'll do. Now, support stands is the next element that we need. How to do this is the question that we're asking. I reckon we do legs that are bolted on. So we've got that bolt already. If we did something like this, that's pretty good. Just have a stand that comes up and just bolts straight onto the side there. And if we make them, might not be able to use 4mm magnets, but we could probably use 2x1mm magnets. That'd probably work if we gave it enough space for a magnet that side. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to make it in one object so that we build one leg, and then we'll mirror it to be on the other side, and then we can bring cross bracing in. Yeah, this bad boy is probably the tallest, meaning I want to be able to walk under it. He is about that tall. What's that? About 80mm tall. Okay, no, 70mm tall. Now, we were going to put a weld texture in there to weld these bits together. That's got a little support beam that goes up and looks like it grabs on, and it gives us somewhere to hide that, which actually reminds me, since this is only half of this piece, So now we need the holes in this that the magnet's going to go in. And we're going to add to this, we'll add a circle, 31 verts, radius of 2.1. So the diameter is 4 mil with a little bit of clearance just for variations in temperature when we try to put the magnet in, as well as some room for the glue. That's probably too many verts. That's unnecessary number. 16 is probably a more reasonable number. And then once that's printed, magnets go in, sticks together, and we've got modular catwalks. Yes, that's what we wanted. There's one change that we still need to do. So I'm actually going to delete that set of legs because we still need to apply a texture to these bits down here that we didn't add before. I don't think he has any. Nothing's coming up when I search weld. Okay, that's a shame. Blender Guru, if you're watching, if you could get some textures and some welds, that'd be great. So we're just going to use one that we already have then, I suppose. I think that's pretty good. When we zoom out, it just looks a bit rough. The texture there. I think that will make a nice little bit of weld. Now, we need to fix the other problem we've created for ourselves up here. Whoops. Because now we've got a bunch of extra geometry in here, which is not ideal. It's not ideal at all. I don't like it. Please make it stop. That really has not worked at all. Yeah, no. We're going to have to come up with another solution. Problem is, I'm fairly sure. Yeah, anything, if we add things at the bottom, it's going to interfere with this. Although this one at the bottom's been interfered with as well. Because there's those verts at the bottom there. Which makes sense, because they run down here when we put them in. Here's what we're going to do. I have an idea. We have to redo those circles. And form modular catwalk. It only took us like, what, 3 hours to get to this step. But the rest of it's quicker from here because we now have all of the individual pieces already built. So for making corners, for making a corner will be quicker. Making a T intersection and a cross intersection will be quicker. Then we need, like, probably a ladder would be a good piece to have. A ladder, and what else? Some stairs. Stairs would be good. So you can have ladders and stairs.
The next day.
So something I've been meaning to do but hadn't yet is we need some bracing for this thing. Okay, let us bring the deck and the legs in and see how that looks. Yeah, that looks pretty well. I wonder if it would be good to have the same kind of bracing on the bottom. There we go, all braced up, and I think that looks pretty good. I mean, of course, because it doesn't start and stop at the same size on each end, when we copy it and bring another copy of it up and connect it with magnets, it'll be starting on this side over here, but that's fine. You can always do two versions of it and just have one that's mirrored if you really want to. That's easy enough to do in the slicer as far as mirroring is concerned, though, so we're not going to worry about it here. Another thing that I want to do a bit of a touch up on is these rails. They need another bar across them, I think. Just having them go up and have the one bar at the top, it doesn't look quite right. If we go back to our reference materials, when we look at our handrails, look, 2 bars, 2 bars, 2 bars, 2 bars. You get the point. And there we go. That's got those handrails looking a lot better now with the 2 bars in them. It just looks much sturdier, and like it'll actually stop you falling off this thing. Maybe, probably not. I think we're still going to make people fall off. It's going to be great. But that looks pretty good. So we've got some bracing now. We've got those, which means the next step is to make some variations of it so that we can have it weave around. So we need a corner, we need a T-junction, we need a cross junction, we need either a ladder or stairs or both. All right, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to make this two-dimensional again, just so that it's easier to stitch together. And we're going to make this one also two-dimensional. And then we can always extrude it out. And since we know that's already out as far as we want it to go, we'll go up to here and grab this, delete those verts, and then tab out, select this small piece, then shift and click the big piece, Control J, join them, they're now a single object, and we can now stitch this stuff together. And to do that, we're going to put a loop in here, grab this edge's Y value, which is -23. Grab this loop, set it to -23. Do the same on this side. And then we're just going to stitch them together, and where this bar is a bit thicker, it'll look like a join. Perfect. And it's stitched in. Now, the next bit that we need for this is we need all of the bits that we're going to add to it. So we're going to make a duplicate of this collection because it's already got most of the things that we need. Everything on this side is fine as is. This side, however, needs some changes to be made, because we can't have this rail going through here for starters. This needs to come out this way, and then we can just grab another copy of these. Rotate Z90. Yep, that works. And then if we grab this value, set it to 0 and apply it to that, but apparently it needs to be positive, not negative. That puts those legs there. That's a start. The next thing that we need is to modify this so that it comes out here. So everything under there, that's still good. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn off everything else because I don't need to see it at the moment. We do need that just so that we know roughly where it needs to go. So we're going to, just like how we did with this, we're just going to duplicate it, paste it in, and then merge it. However, where these join in, I'll either put some plates that we can bolt or some weld, because this is big enough that you would be able to notice it. So duplicate, rotate 90 degrees. Okie dokie. So next step is we need plates in these corners and in here. We also need to modify this guardrail so that it doesn't cut off our catwalk, because at the moment it's not desirable. And there we go. We now have a guardrail with a 90-degree bend in it, which is good because that's a very important bit. Of course, we are going to need to make a copy of that. But I do want to set origin to 3D cursor because I want that position, because that is where it's going to be 0. So that when we rotate around here, it rotates around this point perfectly. So if we now go and duplicate and rotate Z 90 degrees, minus 90 degrees apparently, puts it there. We now have a nice T-junction. We just need to add in the bolts to bolt it onto the side of this piece. Now, there's one more element we're missing before this section of catwalk is set the way we want it. And that is about how these are joining, because at the moment they're just joined and there's no real explanation as to how they were joined, which is something that's pretty important. Duplicate this first for the corner. We simply cut this end off and we're good. So that's what we're going to do for simplicity's sake. So that's that support structure done. And while I was doing that, I realized that a couple of nights ago when I was doing the original support structure in the straight section, that I put these loops and overly complicated the joint here. And I'm not entirely sure why I did that, because it was a couple of nights ago that I did that. So we're just going to do it straight in like this. And when I review the footage, if I decide that doing like this was necessary for some kind of reason, I can't see a reason. I'm not sure why it's like that. I'll do the same thing to here, but I can't really think of why I would have done that. So I'll check the footage and see if I explain to myself why. Although, if you've watched this part, you'll have already seen that part and you'll know why. And I'll just look like an idiot. Please feel free to let me know in the comment section below. So next step is we need probably something across there to support that. Because at the moment, I'm going to come in here and make a nice triangle in here at the point of that. And also make triangles in here which are nice and strong. Cool, so that's got all that in. There's just a few holes to plug up, and then where these come together down in here, I wonder if it'd be worth making that a bit neater. No, I think having that gap there's fine. So ideally, you don't want triangles in your mesh, but since we're not using many modifiers on this mesh itself, it's fine for this particular situation because when it gets exported as an STL, it all gets turned into triangles anyway. There we go, and now we have some nice triangular bracing for this to sit on top of, and it all looks pretty good. I'm very happy with that so far. So 2 more elements we need to fix up for this corner. We need this rail to bend around this way instead of going this way, and we need a leg in this corner here. So let us tackle the rail next. So for simplicity's sake, we are going to join these two together so that they're now one object, and then we can meld them in. Okay, so for the next step, we need one leg in here. Luckily, because we just copied the 3-way and made it into a 2-way, feel free to take that out of context. We already have one. So since it's just being mirrored at the moment, and that is the center, I think if we just get rid of all the faces along here, we should be able to just change where it's mirroring to the y-axis and have it clip in there. Solved that leg problem. That now looks stable. It's got some beefy, chunky legs. What I might do, because I don't like how beefy those legs are, it looks like comedic overkill. Because we did make the whole thing wider. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have it look like there's a thick bit of box section, and then it's going to taper in, and there's going to be a weld where it looks like it's been welded onto a thinner piece. goes on, and I'm willing to call that finished. I just need to check something. I knew there was some face orientations that weren't right. And since that's a copy of that, that one's going to be all wrong too. Select all, Alt, and recalculate outside. Select all, Alt, and recalculate outside. Which annoyingly means, oh wow, there's a lot wrong here.
1 eternity later.
Okay, and then there's just one more piece that we need because we've now got a straight, we've got a corner, we've got a T-junction. We just need a crosswalk now, and we'll have all of the catwalk that we need. So collapse that down. I think the easiest way to do that will be to take the T-junction, and we're going to make a copy of that basically, and then modify it to be kind of the same thing. So we'll take all of this stuff and just paste it over here pretty much. So I'm going to do that off camera, and then we'll be back. Okay, next thing we need is a way to get onto the catwalk. Start with the ladder. That seems like a good spot to start. So I'm going to need assets from the bits that we add underneath the deck itself. So we're going to duplicate that collection. So ideally, I think we don't use these guardrails. So let's get rid of those guardrails. The guardrails I do want is probably this guardrail. Kind of want it to be really short so we can just clip straight onto a piece. But we need enough room because I think I want the ladder in the middle, but I want the guardrail to come around the corner a bit on each side. So what I am going to do is I want this origin to be in the middle. So we're going to set its X value to 0. We're going to tab in select all, and we're going to move it. Actually, no, go back. We're going to grab this X value first and put it on the clipboard. Then we're going to 0 it. Then we're going to tab in, have all of it selected, and paste it in because it was minus. It's going to go across this way, and it went across the other way. So apparently we do need to add it. So let's get rid of that negative there. So that puts the guardrail back where it is with the origin now in the middle, which means we can now mirror this to make it a little bit easier. Yeah, we're going to have the ladder come straight up. And I reckon we build the ladder into the handrail itself. I think that would look pretty good. Just have this handrail continue down. That solves the problem of how it gets bolted onto the catwalk itself. And we can have just handrails come up as much as we need them to. Which does mean we will just need to slide all of this back in a little bit. So I'm just going to grab this and move it on Y and just bring it in so that the gap on this corner here is about the same. Now the next problem that we have is what to do with this. What is the width of this, I wonder? And that one. So that's the next value. So that's 20 mil wide. Yeah, it's a decent width for the ladder, I think. And where's the model? Okay, let's see. Yeah, holding a ruler up to the model. 20 mils, possibly even too much. But I think for our application, that'll be pretty good. If we test it and find that it just looks ridiculously too wide, we'll change it. But I think that's proportioned pretty reasonably. And you know what? I just remembered why we had that extra geometry on that brace, because this is how we'd done those ones. So they'd gone into corners. It's resolved. Now, two options that we have. We can either try to cram a leg in here, and there's already way too much going on here for a leg to really fit, or an alternate option, which I think will work very nicely. So if we grab this and we send it down to whatever height this is at, so if we go tab in here, we can grab its height from not that vert, the vert below, minus 77.5. Throw it in there. And just have these two come down. They should be able to support most of this, and we're going to put a little plate at their base as well. There we go, and that'll be those two bolted in. Then the last thing that we need to do is put our bars going across. There we go, that's got the ladder in, and this was a little bit tricky because I needed to put a rung on either side of where it bolts onto the little C section, but then I need all of the rungs roughly evenly spaced. I think it's mainly there. It probably needs a bit of fine tuning because it looks like it is spaced a little bit more on this one than the rest. So I wonder if it'd be worth bringing all of them up a bit and bringing this top one down. I think we will actually do that. So it's got the rungs on my ladder evenly spaced. Keep in mind that this is only a bit taller than a person would be. So these rungs are probably pretty well spaced actually for what a real ladder would be like. And that's our ladder piece done. Now onto the stairs, which are going to be interesting to say the least. We're going to make a copy of this. Now we need to turn this ladder into stairs, which is going to be interesting to do. So let's just get rid of the handrail. The legs are good. I can disappear nuts and bolts for now. And basically what we want is for this extrusion to come out of here and turn them down so we can put the steps of the stairs in. Perfect. So that's going to be our staircase. Now we just need to put something in to kind of bolt it in place. Although, maybe we don't need to for this. maybe we could just have it that's just welded in, basically. Because down here, we need to put our guardrail. So let's do the guardrail, and then reassess if we actually need to do anything else to dress this up and have enough going on there. Because if we try to put a support underneath it and then some bolts to hold it on, plus the guardrail and the bolts holding that on, it might get too much and it will just end up looking messy. So let's bring a handrail in. And there we go. We now have a handrail. All set in, no nasty internal geometry. I don't think there is. Yep, looks good. Should probably just double check and make sure our faces are all oriented correctly. Oh wow, that's a mess. No, it's Alt N. Recalculate outside, that fixes that, and we also need to fix the actual stairs themselves. So yeah, basically what we did is just went and stitched it all in. We've got our 45-degree bends here and down here. This is all in, and then where we had the circle inverts sitting in the top in the geometry, we merged them together just to neaten that bit up for us. I don't think any more support is needed in here. I think that looks fairly durable as it is. And when we looked at all the reference imaging, there wasn't really any evidence of any support underneath the grate there. It looked like they were largely just welded or bolted or pulled on, like there'd be a rod going through, pulling it in or something. So I don't think we really need an explanation. There's plenty of detail out here for what's going on there. Okay, one last thing I think before we finish this. At the moment, printing this thing is going to be a bit of a pain in the butt with these legs. I mean, not this one specifically. This one probably be fine, but I think mainly this cross junction because it's going to have to be put on an angle to fit on my build plate because it's 151 wide and my build plate's 120 deep. Yeah, deep. Well, it's 151 by 151, so either way. The point is, it'd have to be on its side. It only just fits when it's rotated up 90 degrees. So I think we need to make it so that these legs are detachable. We'll make this so much easier to print. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the OG leg on the straight piece. And we're going to make it so that it's detachable, basically. And the way we're going to do that is really simple. We're just going to leave a cutout in here for this bit of the C channel, and it'll just slide over the end once it's printed if we leave enough space. So I think this is definitely how we're going to do it because this will be easier, I think. And then also I'm going to put like an X shape in between the two legs just to make it a bit more stable. So that's done that. And I also cleaned up the geometry a bit by getting rid of some loops that were not doing anything and were pointless there. So that should work quite well. When we bring our extrusion back in, there's a nice little gap there that this can slip over there. Need the gap for clearance should there be any expansion or shrinking while printing. If the printer's not calibrated exactly right, which down to the micron is very difficult to get, as well as, the temperature of when you try to stick it together could change, which could cause issues. This solves all of that. There is some minor problems that we do need to fix, though, that I've noticed. Now, next problem is our nuts and bolts. These now go straight through here, so we need to fix these pieces. Now, the other thing that I said we were going to do, now that we've done that, is we're going to put a little bit of an X brace in here just to tie these two together. There we go. So I've added weld into where you wouldn't be able to grind it flat, and then I'm just going to say this face is ground flat before it was painted. It adds a little bit of detail that, yeah, looks good. Okay, while I was throwing a picture of this up on our Facebook page, I noticed where I made a slight mistake. This is only half of the legs, because it will be mirrored over here where the magnets will then clip the two together, which means this bit needs to go right up. So fortunately, this is a fairly easy fix to. Problem now fixed. We can now export that and print it, and it will be mad. So for the legs that are on the outside of the corner piece, that's the only place this type of leg is used. But we can't just do the simple slide on, slide off because it's bolted in behind the handrail. So I think what the plan is, I'm just going to grab the verts in here and split this into two pieces. It's done. So we also won't be needing those anymore. And then we'll just have this do a boolean with those bolts putting in their own thing. And we can now have these attach in nicely. Good work. Okay, so done test print, and there's a couple of issues that we're going to have to sort out. So I've got my sole survivor here, and as you can see, the height of the guardrail is pretty good there. However, the thickness of the guardrail, I probably should have measured it beforehand, but it's way too thick. It's about twice the thickness of a wrist, which is just, it looks silly. So we need to reduce the thickness of the guardrail. We also need to add more steps, because when I put her on the step, the scale just looks wrong. We need at least twice as many steps, so the next step is not above her knee, because that's not going to work. And we possibly will need to reduce the thickness of each of the steps and the grade at the top to accommodate for this. The other thing is where the C channel comes along, you can't see it real well there, maybe this angle you can, but it changes thickness going down here, so we'll need to fix that up. Also, I'm not sure if I want the C channel to be that thick. Once we reduce this, it might look fine, but we'll make that decision then. The good news, though, is that our little clip thing where the legs clip on works perfectly. Doesn't even need glue. It's a very nice tight fit. I probably will glue most of them just for simplicity's sake, but they don't really need it. It does just hold on there quite nicely. So we're going to jump back into Blender and we're going to fix up those aspects. Okay, so that's the stairs fixed up now. All those scaling issues are resolved. We've shrunk this bit of C channel down so it's not stupid oversized. We've shrunk the rails down so they look about the right thickness. We've doubled the number of stairs and halved the thickness of the stairs, so that's pretty good. And while I was in there, I made it so that where these bolt on is between steps, so that looks nice and neat. Now we will repeat that for all of the other handrails and decks and stuff. Okay, that's most of the scaling fixed now. Last thing, which I think it's the last thing, I hope it's the last thing, I'm going to look like an idiot, is all of the joints on this need to be scaled down as well, which is going to be fun, because there's control loops in this one. Yay! Okay, so that's all those problems picked up, and while I was in there, I thought of another one. We didn't leave any clearance in here for this to clip in. So if we go to our corner, so I've now carved it back a bit just to add some clearance so that when that clips in, it clips in nicely and doesn't bow this out on us. And I think that's all of the issues that we needed to fix. Now fixed. I also took the opportunity to add some additional, what's it called? Rungs. Add additional rungs into the ladder because we added additional steps into the stairs. So it makes sense to add more rungs, I suppose. And hopefully, when we do a test print, we won't find any more issues and we'll be able to print the whole set and have a mad catwalk for our tabletops. If that's the case, then we'll go straight to the outro now. If it's not the case, well, I guess we'll be back here in a moment to fix more problems. Yay! So there you go. That's how we sculpted this catwalk for the water treatment plant we're going to use for our Fallout Wasteland Warfare games. Obviously, you can use this for any gaming system you like, and if it's a different scale, just scale it a bit differently. It'll be fine. This particular file is now available on our Patreon, unless you're watching this in the future sometime and I've cycled it off of the Patreon, in which case it will be available at ordnancewargaming.com.au, link in the down there part. Of course, the other option is just spend the 10 or so hours, I think it was actually more than 10 hours at the end of it, and sculpt the thing yourself. Personally, I just spent the $5. And that's 5 Australian. So if you're outside of Australia, it may seem a little bit cheaper than the number I just said as well. Unless you're way in the future and the early bird special on the Patreon that we're offering at the moment is all filled up and you have to pay full price. Should have jumped in earlier. So subscribe, the smash button, and like the hit button, and we will see you next time.